Guys, welcome back to another ESL podcast. Here I am today with Katarina Gleisberg, and you guys already know her. She's one of the greatest human beings that has ever graced the planet, and she shares so many wonderful details and tools and tips and guides for just about all of you out there to become either effective speakers, effective listeners, or do this or do that. And today, we're kicking off probably a one of two-part, maybe three-part series. We're talking about effective listening strategies. We will be getting into the academic side of it going forward, but today, we're just talking about everyday listening. So without further ado, thank you so much, Katrina, for joining me and everyone else today.
I'm so grateful to be on again. It is such a joy.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, and I just love Curious George. He's just right there in the back, just smiling at me. For those of you watching on video, you guys can see Curious George. But for those of you who are not on video, you guys are missing Curious George.
Yeah, my students love him.
They love him, huh? I
it
love
doesn't
him
matter
too.
the age.
I had a haircut like that once. People would say, "You look like Curious George." You know, stupid people.
I remember you sharing them before. That's so funny.
It was a beautiful haircut, but yeah, people are talking bad about me.
Such a beloved, cute little guy that you should just remember that as such a compliment.
Yeah. What was that? 1980s, I think, wasn't it?
Oh, I actually think he's way older than our childhood. I want to say he goes back like to the 60s, 50s, something like that.
I just realized Mickey Mouse was the 1910s and Daffy Duck was the 1920s. I just realized that. I thought they were like 70s.
Isn't it cool that there are some characters that are like the childhood characters for multiple generations? Yeah, Curious George is totally one of those.
A century. Goodness. That's awesome. And it's great that, Walt Disney able to carry that on, and they're carrying on that vision. You know what I mean? So nonetheless, so let's hear it. You were just telling me that, again, this will be things that you've learned and whatnot, especially from the classes you've been teaching. So give us an introduction into this, what we're going to be speaking about today.
So listening. So in the adult class that I teach, I'm lucky in that there is not a really set time constraint curriculum that I have to follow. I am grateful that I can teach what my students request of me. And my students primarily right now in this particular class that we're referencing, this particular class, they are English language learners with the native language of Spanish, most of them. Some of them are from other Latin countries where they have tribal languages, but primarily Spanish-speaking females who are very open as far as, can you please help me with calling my children's school? Can you please help me know what to say to my neighbor? And I really, really appreciate that they are open with, this is what is useful to me. Can you help me?
Love it.
And when we go through dialogue situations of what to say, they are very honest about asking questions for what they need help with. And honestly, the biggest thing lately has been the pronunciation of words. These are words that they know, that they can understand, but the pronunciation is difficult and it affects their listening. Because if they don't know the correct pronunciation themselves, then listening to native speakers, it might be a word that they know if they see it written, but when they hear it, it seems like it's foreign, even though this is vocabulary that they know. And I know from being a language learner myself in other countries, it's devastating and almost kind of embarrassing when you ask somebody to repeat something or to spell it out and you're like, I know what this word means. I just didn't understand it because of the pronunciation issue.
And so, Katrina, just real quick, my students on a routine basis, basically what you're saying is, because they don't understand the real pronunciation or they've tried translating it into their language, they're unable to understand when I say it. And then when I say it, let me give you an example. There is no AL, okay, suffix AL in Thai, like central. So what they do, they substitute it and they say sentan, right? So everything with the AL ends up in an an, right? And so when I'm saying central, or if I say McDonald's, or if I say future, there's no RE in their language. So instead they say future. It's not water, it's water.
Yes.
Hamburger, no, it's hamburger. You see what I mean? It's like always a at the end. So I'm like, what can they do? If I mean, do they have to learn the pronunciation of every single word? Is that what? Because I've always tried saying, like, guys, I don't know. You go.
So there are specific sounds that I talk about all the time. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the R sound, like in the end of future. Oh my gosh, with the native Spanish speakers and with native, when I was teaching refugees, oh my gosh, that R sound is so difficult. And I feel like every single day I'm teaching an adult class, I have to say R. Notice how your mouth.
Yes.
It's like, do you notice when I say a word like future?
Yeah.
The R sound, my mouth goes
corner of the mouth. Uh-huh.
And so that is the biggest thing, is noticing the feeling in your face.
The contraction of the muscles.
How does the face change, or the mouth, the tongue, the teeth, etc.? What is the relationship between those things for all the different sounds? I am always saying R, or simple words that we use all the time, like your. That is a difficult word for them. Mm. That sight word we use all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always saying, feel it in your face. Your. Same thing with the letter L, like you said. I am always talking about with words like when we say this word, it's touch, make sure your tongue is touching your teeth. Little. And especially when you
put it up here, you do it up there.
I exaggerate it.
Oh yeah, sure. Because then they'll do it like 50%, and they'll probably put it like right here instead. Yeah. Okay.
So
okay,
they need to see it when they're first learning.
Oh yeah.
And so sometimes it backfires a little, and that they'll do it really exaggerated. But it's like, at least they have that awareness, that mindfulness. Me being that mindful person, I'm trying to bring that back to that present awareness of what is the body sensation that you have when you make a certain sound. Little. And so we'll do that over and over and over. And even if we're reading something and I've gone over it 3 times, 4 times, they will pause. And I will let them do it as many times as they want. If they need to repeat that sound 12 times, and that's what's going to help them, that's muscle memory. That's muscle memory. Just like when we learned to brush our teeth, we didn't have that muscle memory right away as a 2-year-old, but it's something that we build, and it's something that you will build also when you're learning a language and you're doing sounds that aren't natural for you. Noticing what that feels like in the face to pronounce those sounds.
So it's back to basics. These are called beginning blends.
Yes.
Beginning blends. I've taught this a long time ago because I used to teach a girl from Laos. Laos, a country just above Thailand, for those who don't know. And like her pronunciation, I was like, what are you saying? But I helped her. So I started from the beginning. So I'm going to give you 2 beginning blends that my students find very, very difficult. TH, they don't say the, they say duh, like D-U-H, like duh. You know what I mean? Like confirm it. How come you don't know that? That's what duh means. But they say that, and if they go to America and, and they're trying to say T-H-E, the, and they say duh, and they say it to someone who's like, would you like a water? And you're like, duh. Or you just say the, that could be a huge misconception. So TH is one. Another one, TR. I was teaching a doctor. He had to go home and say it about 1,000 times, and he got it. because the TR is a CH, essentially. Truck, right? Truck. What else? Lots of TRs. Train. Tree. You see what I mean? But they try to put the T with the R. So they say truck, truck, truck. And I'm like, you sound like a baby. You know what I mean? So what are some beginning blends? No offense to my people out there, but truck, 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 truck. Don't say that to people. Tree.
The TH, so you know how there's two different THs?
Right.
Right? There's the and there's thin, right?
Oh.
And TH. So that's something that I learned, beginning linguistics class, first semester of my master's program in language learning.
Uh-huh.
And that is something that makes one of the many things that makes English difficult, right? We have 5 vowels that make 20 different vowel sounds. Right. TH, why does TH make 2 different sounds? It does. It's difficult. So in the word the is a different TH than in a word like thin, thick. So when we are doing TH, yes, we have to spend a lot more time on TH words. And actually, one of the things that I think causes a bigger issue with my current students is the end sounds of words, especially ER. Yes. Because if you don't have down the end sounds of words, then what happens is when you listen to these words, all of the words blend together as one giant word. And in that one giant word, you're not hearing the individual words that you actually know. So in a word like, okay, a lot of my students call me teacher and they say teacher, right? They don't have the ER down.
Exactly.
So
Thailand too. Teacher.
Yes, all of these words end up blending together. So I do, even though students know the vocabulary, it is important to spend at least a few minutes of every class session going back to phonics. And it's interesting to me, like if I forget, because a lot of times, like I said, this particular class is very informal. If it's toward the end of the class, my students will ask for phonics. They will ask, or it will come up naturally in our conversation. Because it's one of those things, kind of like we've talked about, it's never best to teach grammar just in isolation. It's better if it's within the context of something we're learning in class. The same thing with phonics. So if the dialogue that we're working on happens to have a lot of ER verbs, that's the perfect time to go through, okay, we're going to highlight all the ER words in this daily interaction dialogue, and we're going to focus on the ER words there first, and then we'll bring in other examples. So it's always good to relate it back to a particular text. So teaching phonics is an amazing thing, but here's a fun thing that we talked about muscle memory. When you do something with your body, like a movement, you are more apt to remember to do it. So here's something that I experienced also as a language learner in other countries. We were talking about how you hear words that you know the meaning of, but you may not recognize them. And it's because we are putting the accent on the wrong syllable, or we don't know where to put the accent. Excellent. We know what the word looks like written out.
Yes.
So an example of me when I was in Greece, I had this lovely Greek coworker who would bring me things that they had grown, like lemons from her tree, and her father had picked fresh oregano. But she was saying, I have some, and they don't pronounce it like oregano. It must be like oregano, or however she said it in her beautiful way. And it was the same word, but she wasn't saying it with the Americanized pronunciation. And I was like, huh? And finally, when she spelled it out and described that it was a spice, I was like, oh, oregano.
Yes.
Okay. I know what you're talking about. I know this word. It's just that it sounds like a different word if the accent is on different syllables. So when I'm teaching my English language learners, and it's a word like that that's hard for them to pronounce, I will literally do movements with my hands of oregano.
Yep.
And they will start to do it too. Because when movement is associated with something, we know the power of multiple intelligences. We've talked about multiple intelligences before. When you bring in another strategy, when it's not just writing, when it's also speaking, when it's also movement, when it's also listening, when it's bring in all of these different skills, it's going to make it more memorable. So I literally use my hands and we go up and down for different accented words. And we do the same thing with separating words. Because if I'm reading a sentence really fast or at a normal native speaker speed, students sometimes cannot hear where the end of one word is and the start of the next word. And that affects their ability to listen. So I might use my hands. And if let's say it's a sentence that has 4 words, I will sometimes, as they're speaking, if we start with something basic of how are you, I'll use the hands of separating words. It seems really simple with a short sentence like that, but you start bringing in sentences that have 8, 9, 10 words. Right. It's really, really valuable for them to hear the words with the movement, to know your, especially with those R words of, that's the end of a word, your. Right. Before they go on to the next. And that accented syllable, I cannot reiterate it enough, how that can be so detrimental to people who aren't even beginners, right? They know all these words, but when they're speaking and listening, that is such an issue for them if they cannot understand the word because they don't have the accent on the correct syllable, right? In English, we don't have the accent marks on top of our words. Right. When I was learning Greek, they had the accent words. Every word has an accent mark on those long words. It might be like 11 syllables. Right. I mean, they have really, really long words, but it was really helpful when I was learning the language because, I know where to put this accent. We don't have that in English. So I think as teachers, that gives us something to be very mindful of. When they're starting, I will do little marks, fake accent marks on top of words so that they know where to accent them.
Wow, so much. This is why I teach pronunciation. Hell, I've self-taught myself, to be honest with you, because when I started teaching pronunciation podcasts, just as I, initiated my ESL podcast at the end of last March, I really wanted to focus on pronunciation because I know that's the biggest problem. And so this is probably why so many Japanese people, and of course, the country of Japan, they're my number one in terms of my ESL podcast. Because when it comes to, stressing the correct syllables, they could get it wrong big time. And so I still remember that I went to the currency exchange at Narita Airport, and she was like, hello? Oh, you want Singapore dollars? You know what I mean? It was just like a roller coaster, but people, and this is why a lot of my students, just like yesterday, I just finished teaching a sales team who works at the Mandarin Hotel, and they were telling me that, the customer always goes like this, and they say, excuse me, again, please, sorry. And it's because you didn't pronounce specific words. So for them, it's easy because if they gave me the presentations of the different types of jewelry and display, I said, okay, just learn the specific pronunciations for these words. You only have to repeat them on a routine basis. So, okay, you had a problem saying jade. You said jet. And then, of course, one of the students, instead of helping her, she almost made a mockery of her that she got blah, 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 all these women who work there. And so I said, no, jade. It's a dole, jade, and then cut it off, right? Don't say jet. Jet is completely different from jade. Jade is an emerald, I believe. And so those little things people can clean up, and that's learning it in context. right? Instead of saying onyx, which of course is what is that? A stone. There we go. It's a stone. I just learned that yesterday. Oh my God. Onyx. I only knew the Pokemon. I know Onyx the Pokemon. You know the Pokemon, the big rock guy.
I'm not very familiar with Pokemon, but as a kid, when my family visited Turkey, Onyx is a thing there. All these Onyx figurines. So I got to know Onyx real well.
Right. All right. That's awesome. And again, that's another one. Pokemon. We pronounced it. We pronounced it. I pronounced it. Oh God, I'm sounding real American. Pronounced it. Oh my God, that was a very American. Pronounced it correctly because my entire childhood, I would say Pokemon. Pokemon. That's incorrect because in Japanese, it's Pokemon. Pokemon. You see what I mean? So those little things, and like karaoke. No, it's karaoke. You see what I mean? These little things can confuse people, but it's all about just making the little, the toggles, it's just, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'm just learning it in context, especially. If it's work-related, you can get better at that very, very quickly. But there are specific girls that I've talked to, especially yesterday, where they had a lot of pronunciation issues. And I said, guys, it's okay. You got about 5 words you need to clean up. So when you wake up in the morning, don't say Luby, Luby. No, it's Ruby, Ruby, Ruby. No Luby. And they're like, oh, it's difficult. I said, I don't care. Wake up in the morning and say Ruby, 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 Ruby. Like right when you wake up, when that alarm clock goes off, say it. If you're sleeping next to someone, I don't give a damn. You could clean it up very quickly. So.
Yes, and most importantly, with that, be mindful of what does your face feel like when you pronounce that R? Ruby, Ruby. Right. Is your mouth going, if you have to exaggerate it a lot? I mean, people that are learning drama and speech, they practice those mouth exercises for a reason. Mm-hmm. Right? It's the same when we're learning a language, being very mindful of Ruby. I like if it helps to put your hands on your face, do it. It's more muscle memory.
Right. And so that's what, and again, going back to like the beginning blends, that's the most important. I would go into thought groups, but that's more advanced like later. So again, doing the beginning blends. Now, again, Katrina, for the young students and the adult students who have problems, with pronunciation, what are some things that you tell them to do? Let's say sentences. Do you give them little dialogues? Do you have them record their voice? Do you have them slow down their speech? Do you have them, because again, I know how to stress different words that have multi-syllables because I was reading a book. And I'm like, oh my God, direction. Oh, okay, 3 syllables. You normally stress the middle one. If you stress the last one, it could be a French syllable like trustee, committee. Committee, no, that's different. That's the exception. Right. Cafe, you're right. So cafe is a French word, right? Because it has the accent. So in American English, we normally say cafe, but I'm sure in French, they say, you know what I mean? they know, because I see a French guy all the time. He's the CEO of my gym, and you should hear the things he says. It's ridiculous. I'm like, how is that even a word? You know what I mean? But it's all different, like German too. So anyways, go ahead.
Well, it's funny because something that has helped me in other countries is when when I was in Greece and I'm like, what is that word? Because I'm not hearing the individual letters. I'll say that, can you say that in an Americanized way? And and it would work. I'm like, I wasn't able to hear that whatever sound because of they do have these sounds I always struggled with the Greek gamma with this like guttural sound. And so I'd say, can you Americanize that? And okay, I get that now. I know how it's spelled. I get it. It makes it easier once I know what the Americanized way would be. I remember, so one time I was in Italy and I was with a group of people and
this sounds bad. There's a guy,
yeah. was Australian.
Oh boy.
And
their enunciations. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Keep going.
He was asking. We needed, like, was it transportation? Something we were asking for help, and he asked in his Australian accent, and the person behind the counter was not understanding him. Then this guy, the Australian, decided to take on an Italian accent and said, I want to know. And the Italian guy understood him.
No!
The Italian guy understood him, and I was just like dying of laughing, because this is something, like, if the guy didn't have a sense of humor, he could have felt offended. But he was taking on his fake Italian essence, and the guy understood. Not that I don't know if that works all the time, but you know, if people realize, if you're like having fun with it and you're really vulnerable about I'm struggling with this, laughter always bonds people.
Absolutely.
And if someone's going to be stuffy, then they're going to be stuffy whether or not, no matter what language you're speaking or how well.
Right. And I got a real quick story, because I remember one time, there's a place called Future Park. Okay. And this is where I used to work like 2 years ago. It was a long time I was working there. Hellish place. But as I was trying to take like a transportation there from another side of town, I remember I went to the minivan, which is a little minibus thing, and there are people sitting in passenger seats, all that stuff. And the guy looked at me, he's like, uh-oh, Falang. Falang is like a foreigner in Thai, right? And I said, bye. Bye means go. So I say, bye future. He's like, Alena, meaning what? And he's like, oh, Michael die. And he's dismissing it, saying, I don't understand. And I'm like, oh, let me use the Thailish way of saying it. Bye future. He's like, oh, okay, bye future, okay, bye. I'm like, God damn, you can't understand it. But it's the same with McDonald's. I can't say McDonald's. Unai. Where is McDonald's? I have to say McDonald's. You see what I mean? McDonald's. In Japan, they say Makadukuro. You know what I mean? They don't understand. So I can relate to that story.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That makes me think of, so I have a friend, and she is from Sicily. So she knows how to pronounce Italian words. And we were at a restaurant, and she ordered, okay, we call it bruschetta, but she asked for it, and she said it the Italian way, bruschetta. Of course, more beautiful than that.
Yeah.
And they're like, the waiter was like, it's bruschetta. And she's like, I'm from Italy. But she's had to do the same thing. And she didn't, my friend didn't say it rudely or anything, but it's so interesting that with a word like that, you would think they sound very close, but this waitress felt the need to correct her. And how interesting is it? Like you were saying, it's in our language, we're used to hearing it one way, and it's not. The word comes from Italy, but we're not saying it with the real pronunciation. We change the pronunciation to fit our normal sounds.
And we have the audacity, especially Americans, to give an opinion when you have no authority to be given an opinion or correcting anyone. You know what I mean? I remember one British teacher, there's a city called Pattaya. That's how you say it in Thai. A lot of foreigners, they say Pattaya. I'm like, guys, learn the pronunciation. So I said it correctly the first time. This British teacher, he's like, no, it's like this. Say it correctly. And I'm like, what? I went to my students. I say, how do you say it? They said it exactly how I said it. I went back to them. I said, you're full of shit. You don't know anything. Don't correct me because you don't know how to say a damn thing. Your accent sucks. And I just went on a rant. Anyways, that got ugly. But yeah, I just don't correct me unless I want to be corrected. You see what I mean? So that's very important in a lot of cultures.
like and it's frustrating when they're correcting you for the wrong pronunciation.
Yes, that's what happened to me.
So yeah.
I see it. I see that face. That was a Katrina rant that was about to come. Oh my god. Anyway.
Yes. But you had asked a question before I told my story of the Australian guy in Italy.
Dialogue, sentences, yes.
Yes. And so back to some of those tips, and you had asked, like, is one of the methods I use recording? Yes, absolutely. I cannot stress enough how important it is to not only listen to recordings while you're looking at the written, but to also record yourself. And I know we spoke about this when we did our podcast on speaking strategies, but when I introduce a daily interaction dialogue to my students, so like we just started last week, was the daily interaction dialogue on the phone conversation of what to say to report your child's school absence. And so it's a longer dialogue. I mean, it's one page, but it's small font. And because I believe in quality over quantity, we only got through probably half of that dialogue in that particular class, which is fine because we were doing lots of pronunciation practice and vocabulary, etc. And so this is exactly why I make YouTube videos for my students based on the daily interaction dialogues. So, and because I have students, and for me, these YouTube videos are not about like, oh, how many views am I going to get from randoms? It's like, okay, if this is going to help one student who's trying really, really, really hard because she wants to be involved in her child's education, then if I make that YouTube video and it gets 5 views because she watched it 5 times, then it is worth it.
Absolutely.
Because for me to make that YouTube video, it's only going to take me about maybe 3 minutes to read the text. Right. Yes. But she knows me. She trusts me to ask me all these questions of what her basic needs are. And she's going to go back and she is going to use the written script that I've given her. And she's going to follow along with the words as she's hearing me speak. And she's going to come back and she's going to ask me questions. And that is the best method, is if you can hear the words while seeing the written text. Because you and I have discussed before, there are 4 domains of language learning: reading, writing, speaking, and listening.
Correct.
And if we try to do those in isolation, it's going to slow down our language learning process. Right. But because a lot of people, depending on the culture, a lot of Asian cultures, I'm generalizing here, but tend to be better with the reading and the writing, whereas other more vocal cultures, they seem to be better with the speaking and the listening. But if you can combine those domains together and you are listening to a dialogue as you're reading the text, you are doing some powerful work for your brain to unite the two. So yes, they listen to my dialogues, my recordings on YouTube at home for pronunciation practice, but they also then, I have them do the dialogues with each other where they are also going to be recording themselves.
I like that.
So, I mean, you're putting an extra bit of pressure, good pressure on them when they know that they're going to be listening to themselves being recorded. Another thing that I love to do, and I think when we were talking about strategies for those 4 domains of language learning, reading, writing, speaking, listening, we discussed this, is when the students are already sharing something, like I start every class with a particular speaking prompt that can be simple as, today I am feeling blank because blank. If my students, if I want to have them practice listening strategies, then what I have them do is, okay, they all practice on writing their response first. Then as they're practicing writing, I circulate between my students and I help them with the pronunciation of it individually. And then when they are presenting their prompt response to their classmates, I ask their classmates to write down one thing that each person said. Because if it's uniting all of those domains of language learning, and they are listening very carefully to what their classmates say. If they know, they're going to have to write it down, because it's helping the listener to be more mindful of listening, and it's also helping the speaker to be more mindful of their speaking, because they know that, oh, my classmates are writing down what I say. I better have great pronunciation and pause after my words so that they know what to write.
Such a fantastic technique. See, this is why I love bringing you on to share some of these things, because again, these are things that not only, of course, students, but teachers can actually start applying to a lot of their systems, because, oh man, those little things make all the difference in the world. They get positive feedback and they get constructive feedback, rather than having a teacher say, oh, you're not saying it correctly. No, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this, and then making a mockery out of them, rather than supporting them.
Right. Because this way the classmates are helping each other.
And that is collaboration.
As good teachers, best practices is not lecturing to your students.
Nope.
We want our students to be talking more than we're talking.
Yes.
And so that way they are helping each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to be able to write it and spell it, and they want to be able to, write the word culture, they know I need to say culture with an R, because it's going to help everybody writing it. It's not culture, it's culture.
Every time I hear that, I'm like, oh, Thailand. Yeah, those are my students, my lovely students. But nonetheless, I love it. You know what? To top this off, I'm going to hurry up and tell you something. I just had this discussion last night talking about teachers and students being able to communicate with one another. Extremely important. I'm going to give you an example from my life when I was learning Japanese, I think in 2008 in college. Broken education systems. Obviously, you have a Japanese instructor. She's standing in front of the class, and we're going by a book. There aren't any listening strategies. There aren't any videos at the time, of course, 2008. But being in that class and not speaking to one another in Japanese, and not speaking to the professor in Japanese, and not having hands-on activities in Japanese, not developing pen pals, or just things that are way outside the box, or doing things that will enable us to have fun while speaking. Kind of like what I'm doing in my classes. She didn't do that. Did I learn Japanese? No. However, my Spanish teacher, 2 years after that in university, we had the videos, we had the listening, we had this, we had that. I was enthusiastic about learning because we had such a fun class. It felt like it was a class of comedians because we had such a bond. And one of the girls, and I'm guilty, but there's this girl from Alabama, and these folks from Alabama, they just don't want to try. And when it comes to Spanish, it's very easy, okay? So a cassette tape, right? In Spanish, you say casetera. She was like, casetera. And we, and especially me, we kind of made fun of her. We were like, come on, seriously? You could do better than that. Stop it. And so, again, rather than supporting her, we kind of made fun of her. But then she cleaned up her accent. And she got better. But nonetheless, in that class, we would help one another. Now, did we have dialogues where we spoke to one another face to face? No. The high school system, I won't even get into that because that was a complete garbage way of learning. So now being on the other side of it and being an instructor, a trainer, and all these different things, now I'm able to put together so many effective strategies in my class that can develop not only that confidence, but their listening skills, because the only way to learn is by, trial and error. And if I'm just sitting there with the lecturer and they're just lecturing away, I'm not learning a goddamn thing. That's only one of the representational systems, which is listening, audio. But what if I'm not audio? What if I'm audio visual? What if I'm what is it? Kinesthetic? I forgot. Kinesthetic. What if I'm that? What if I'm this? Everyone has different representational videos. If I'm all audio, but if I'm listening, but I'm not an audio person, that goes in one ear, out the other. It's broken, done. You see what I mean?
Right, and you're missing out on so many opportunities.
Absolutely.
And it makes life easier for the teacher if the teacher's not up there talking the entire time.
Right.
Yeah, like any balanced conversation, no matter who you're talking to, there should be speaking and listening. There should be interaction back and forth, because that's what's natural in life. So if we want our students in the classroom to learn best so they can use this language out in real life, you have to model things to be as lifelike as possible. People are interacting back and forth. So you had mentioned something about accents, and that's another good listening strategy, is listen to a variety of accents of that target language. Because I know there were students that I had taught that in the refugee camp, like if they had, a British teacher that they were learning from, they have the British accent, and so that can be confusing. But the more that you listen to different accents, the more it will make you aware of these different sounds. And so maybe what that looks like for someone is, okay, they're listening to podcasts from different people, balanced with, if they're already listening to TV shows, whatever. It's very, very valuable to listen to different, not just different accents, but different speech styles.
Right.
So, for example, when I took French in high school, I had a French teacher, and she was good at, having us turn and talk and practice dialogues with partners, etc. But I remember when we had tests, these were tests from the book, and it came with the cassette tape where she would play a dialogue that we would listen to, and we would have to write it down. I could never understand when it was the speaker from the cassette who was speaking really fast and there were no pauses between words, because I guess I was used to and spoiled by the fact that my French teacher spoke slowly and paused between words. So so there were times where most of us would be like, huh? And so she would take what was from the tape and then she would repeat it in her own voice. And then I could totally write it down.
Yes.
I know what this means. I know what the response is. But it's very valuable. But if my students were to only listen to my voice, where I'm speaking around them slowly, and in a lot of ways I do have a slower voice than the average person when I'm being mindful, they're not going to be able to relate it to necessarily to that same dialogue we learned in class, related to the cashier who's speaking really, really fast or sloppy or using a lot of slang. So listening, like as a teacher, it's good for me to have my students listen to someone other than just my voice.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's probably why I created this podcast. Because so many of my students, they say, I don't understand the Indian accent. I don't understand this. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. That's why I bring speakers on from all around the world. You know what I mean? And hopefully, like me and you, we're speaking to each other, of course, on, Tuesday, Monday, your time. But I'm going to be uploading this Saturday. So hopefully tomorrow, for people who are listening to this, they will have the Chinese accent. And so now there are no more excuses. I get it. I was the same person, right? I went to Australia. I didn't understand the goddamn thing those people were saying for 3 months. They were like, "Could you give me a couple of..." I said, "Man, you better learn how to speak some English, boy." Boy, I was getting so angry. I swear, Boy, have you tried ever listening to a Australian but Egyptian background? It's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. But it's not the worst thing. It's me not wanting to understand the individual and understand an accent. See, I was a fool when I was a kid, but now I'm a gentleman. Anyways, yeah, go ahead.
I can relate to the fact of hearing somebody speak English, but with an accent that's very strong and hard to understand.
Yeah.
And it makes it way more easy to tune out because it does take more brain power.
Yes.
I have a lot of empathy for these people because I know, oh my gosh, when you are learning a language and you are out there in another country and you're using this in natural settings, it does take so much brain power. It's so good for your brain. I mean, they say learning languages can be a way to decrease chances of diseases such as Alzheimer's.
Oh, amazing.
Right? Because you are using parts of your brain that you don't normally use. So it's so healthy to be learning other languages. But like anytime you do something that's difficult, the struggle can wear you out.
Right.
So absolutely, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle. Practice that mindful self-compassion of, okay, I'm learning something new. It's not supposed to be easy. All of these things in life that are the most valuable things are things that require a little bit of risk-taking and hard work.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. As always, Katrina, we've shared so much information. That was listening, that was pronunciation, that was speaking, that was development for teachers who are out there with, oh my God, that was so much in such a small amount of time. Is there anything else you want to add before I top this bad boy off?
I will be like I have some blog posts that are related to what we talk about in the podcast so that people can see this stuff listed out. So awesome. I will give you the link to the blog post that has some of these suggestions.
Awesome.
And that way we get to practice what we preach, right? It helps people to have the written out text to complement the audio, then I hope these things can serve you in the greatest way possible. And I know that you have so many awesome listeners who ask very thoughtful questions. So this is just another invitation. If we have people out there who are maybe more reserved, but they have these burning questions, please ask. Absolutely. It's those burning questions that give us the greatest ideas for creating new lessons and content such as what's in this podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's for everyone out there. Seriously, we want you guys to reach out. And Katrina and I, we're probably going to be bringing other people on. So there'll probably be three people at one time. I've already introduced her the idea. And we're probably going to bring someone on who I just had recently. She's a teacher. She teaches both English and French in Belgium. So we're going to do some kind of real fun speaking task together. And this will be really, really good because, of course, Katrina sharing the amount of information she has, it's just going to be phenomenal. So again, Katrina, I am so excited for you, what you got going on. We got a few more podcasts to cover for the entire year. And so bringing you back on. And guys, if you like this, share it. I'm going to be sticking of course, her links in the description. So make sure you tune into that. And as always, Katrina, it's been a plum-pleasing pleasure. Yeah. With that being said, guys, stay tuned for more. Over and out.